Hi guys, and thank you for joining me for another episode of You Would Think. We are wrapping up the Lindsay Clancy trial. We are now on day 18, and defense called one more expert. His name was Dr. Reznik, and he appeared via Zoom. He had a lot of interesting things to say as it related to psychosis specifically, and also information about his opinion regarding the delusions or auditory hallucinations that we've heard a little bit about. And he offers his opinion as to what he believes was Lindsay's mental state on that day. To start with, he describes what filicide is, which is where mothers, parents kill their children. And then he also goes through a list of cases that he has personally been hired either by the defense or the prosecution to be a part of. And he has been a part of, to say a few high-profile cases would be a severe understatement. So let's hear that.
Now, filicide is a parent killing a child, and it is a relatively infrequent phenomenon that occurs in the United States somewhere between 400 and 500 times a year.
And Doctor, is it fair to say that you have, at least in the country, if not outside the country, the most experience in working on filicide cases?
I believe that's true. I have been personally involved in, I'd estimate about 80 cases where I was asked to evaluate mothers and fathers who had killed their children.
And the question that I have, Doctor, is have you had occasion to work on cases that found themselves in court where you gave testimony either for the government or for the defense?
Yes, I have.
Let me just go through, if I can. So let me just go through so we can cut to the chase. Did you work as an expert on the case of Jeffrey Dahmer?
Yes, I consulted to the prosecution in that case.
Did you also work on the case of what is referred to as the Unabomber, a fellow by the name of Kaczynski?
Yes, I was also a consultant to the government on that case.
Did you also find yourself consulting on the matter of, in Florida, the Commonwealth versus, or the state versus Casey Anthony?
I was a consultant to the defense in that case, but I could not be helpful.
Did you also work on the matter of Andrea Yates?
Yes, I testified for the defense in both of her trials.
Did you also work on the case of what is known as the Aurora movie theater shooting?
Yes, I was a consultant to the prosecutor in that case.
Did you also work on the case involving the Oklahoma City bombing courthouse?
Yes. Again, I was employed by the government in that case. A postpartum onset. Then, of course, she had considerable difficulty over the next 5 months, and at the time of the crime itself, on January 24, 2023, Ms. Clancy was frankly psychotic. So in that sense, she had a postpartum psychosis.
So you can see he basically says that on the day that the crime occurred, that she was basically psychotic. And that is his expert opinion. Then we see the judge give a specific ruling to the jury regarding how they should consider expert testimony. What they can consider, what they can't consider. It's a special jury instruction that's given to the jurors as they continue to listen to the opinions of these psychiatric experts.
Were not to consider the defendant's statements to any psychiatrist or psychologist as establishing the truth of any facts that are contained in that sentence, in those statements, all right? The defendant's statements to any psychiatrist or psychologist for purposes of evaluation cannot be considered by you as evidence of premeditation, extreme atrocity or cruelty, or specific intent to kill. Such statements are admissible only as they relate to the basis for the doctor's opinion of the defendant's mental condition. All right, and I'll go into that a little bit later, okay?
So now Dr. Reznik goes into things like what are command hallucinations. And he explains what a command hallucination is. And he gives a couple examples. He says, this can be something basically auditory that's telling you to do something, and that most of the time they're not dangerous. They're not things that are going to cause themselves or anyone else harm. However, there are the cases where people will hear auditory hallucinations and these command hallucinations, and they will tell them to do something, whether it be to themselves or to somebody else. And in this case, obviously we know which one was present with Lindsay Clancy. He also talks about something known as the delusion of influence, and goes into a little bit of explaining what that means as well as it relates to somebody who is in the throes of a psychosis.
Psychosis can indeed wax and wane. For example, on the day of her crime, I'm not suggesting that she was frankly psychotic every minute. She was functioning. In fact, she said she was having a better day than other days, and she actually went out and made a snowman with the kids, took Cora to a doctor for the 5th birthday checkup, and was functioning at a level that was not frankly psychotic until she had a command hallucination while her husband Patrick was out doing a couple of chores.
And can you tell us, Doctor, what, in your opinion, what a command hallucination is and how it fits, if you will, in a diagnosis of psychosis?
Yes. If we take, first of all, a hallucination is simply hearing a voice, and the voice can be benign or it can be more malignant. So a voice may just simply say, open a window. About 1/3 of voices are called command hallucinations. That is an instruction to do something. And the majority of those commands are benign. So it might be open a window, get a glass of water. It might be something much more ominous, such as to kill oneself or harm someone else. Those are dangerous command hallucinations. Now, in Ms. Clancy's case, she had not only a command hallucination, on the day that she killed her children. She had what is known as a delusion of influence. That is, not only did she hear a command, but she felt that her body was taken over by an external force where she was in a dream state and did not have control of her own body, almost like she was a puppet and someone else was pulling the strings.
So, in Massachusetts, there is certain criteria that has to be met for somebody to not be criminally responsible for their actions. One is being able to control their conduct. And two, knowing right from wrong in that moment. And Dr. Reznik explains those to us a little bit more in depth.
There are two arms to the test for criminal responsibility. One has to do the defendant's ability to control their conduct, and the other has to do with their knowledge of the wrongfulness of their acts. I'd like to address each of those separately, if I may.
Sure.
With regard to my opinion is that Ms. Clancy was, due to her mental disease, unable to conform her conduct was to the requirements of the law on the day that she took the lives of her children. And let me give you the basis of that opinion. First of all, she was hearing a voice which was commanding her to engage in the killing behavior, and she did not feel any sense of control. She felt that she had to obey the instructions she was receiving. It was a matter where she was just following the command rather than being able to make any decision to do it or not. And, for example, I asked Ms. Clancy.
No, you can't say what you talked. Doctor, you can't. You cannot say what she told you. All right.
Okay. All right. I will not do that. Let me just make sure I'm covering other aspects of this. The second evidence that she was lacking control is the fact that she made a severe attempt, also based on the command hallucination that she heard that day, so that she not only cut her throat and jumped out of a window.
So then it's the prosecution's turn to cross-examine this witness. And one of the things that she points out to him is using his own statement that he said that she was crying every day. And then she goes to admit the notes from the people at the Tewksbury Hospital who saw her and cared for her every single moment of every single day. And nowhere in the notes does it mention her crying. I suppose ever. And through a little bit of hesitation, the Dr. Reznik ultimately stipulates and says, no, I was not aware of that.
Who told you she had been crying every day, correct?
Yes.
Are you aware that in the Tewksbury records, in the one-to-one notes of people who watched her every minute of every day, There's no record of her crying every day.
Well, when I saw her at 4 months, I'm not sure, was she already, how long had she been at Tewksbury? Well, I'm not aware of that note. But
And actually, the most common motive for women who kill their children is fatal maltreatment or child abuse, correct?
that's correct.
And in fact, most women who kill their kids don't do it due to mental illness, correct?
That's correct.
And in fact, there's a quote from you in an article, Child Murdered by Mothers, Patterns and Prevention, where you say, quote, more filicides occur due to fatal maltreatment than because of maternal psychiatric illness, correct?
Correct.
So I think that if you've been watching this trial or paying attention to it, I think that we can all collectively agree that the prosecution was floundering for the majority of this case. However, the questions that she posed to Dr. Reznik about the crime, about the mothers who, commit filicide, who do so usually for what she say, maltreatment or something other than, just wanting to kill them. And he agreed. And she even introduced an article published by him, literally talking about the reasons that parents can partake in filicide and the different reasons why that would be and how that doesn't apply in this case, to which he also agreed. So I think that that was actually a little bit of a win for the prosecution as it relates to this witness, but I don't think it's ultimately going to overcome all of the unnecessariness that occurred during this trial. Drop your thoughts in the comments where you stand as it relates to right now with this case, whether you think that she should be held criminally responsible or if she should not be. And if you think that she should be, do you think she should be straight guilty, send her to prison, or guilty by way of mental disease or defect and sent to a mental hospital for as long as it takes until they deem that she would not be a harm to either herself or the community?
Reddington.
Your Honor, Lindsay Clancy rests her case.
All right. So, members of the jury, the defense has now rested its case. All right. So I'm going to talk to counsel for a minute or so over here, and we're about to go into the next phase of this case, which would be the Commonwealth has offered and given the opportunity to offer rebuttal witnesses on certain issues. And so I'm going to talk to counsel first, and I'll inquire of the Commonwealth if they wish to offer these rebuttal witnesses. Okay? So, counsel, can I see it sidebar?
And after the cross-examination of Dr. Reznik, the defense rested. And we are now going to enter into the next phase, which is giving the Commonwealth the opportunity to call rebuttal witnesses. And we are going to cover the rebuttal witness in part 2 of day 18. So stay tuned for that. And again, thank you so much for joining me for another episode of You Would Think. And I will see you in part 2.